Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey guys, oh my goodness, I have got a juicy episode for you today. The guest here we have today, he's actually based in the UK, right? And his name is Mike Lander. He's a successful entrepreneur and expert negotiator, according to his clients. With a proven track record of buying, growing, and selling businesses, he's raised over, get this guys, £6.5 million of growth capital in his career and grown companies to over £20 million in revenue. He's also negotiated hundreds of deals as a buyer worth over £470 million in total. Mike works predominantly with sales team to help them negotiate more profitable deals, especially where procurement gets involved. Oh my goodness, Mike, this is freaking awesome.
Good to meet you, Kay.
You too. I'm so glad to have you on this show because the things that you've done have been amazing. And guess what? We all need to know how you've done that. Right? And so I know when you're building a business, we spoke kind of off camera a little bit. It doesn't just happen a click of a finger. You don't just wake up one day and, you've got millions of pounds in your bank. We all have a journey to go on. And I would love for you to kind of tell our listeners what that journey looked like for you to get to the point in business that you are in today.
Sure. So if you kind of went back to kind of my early years, and I won't do the year by year, it'd be very dull for everyone, including me. But what I'll do is I'll give you a few highlights. So I was adopted as a child. And at 6 months, I was adopted. So I was fostered 0 to 6 and then adopted at 6 months old. And although it doesn't have a material bearing on my life now, it does kind of affect you as you grow up as a child. I think most adopted people would say, whether they know who their natural parents are or not, it affects your kind of life journey. And so what impact that has on being an entrepreneur, I don't know, apart from one thing. I think what it makes most entrepreneurs that have been adopted tick a little bit is this need for kind of security. So because of the background, you want to make sure that you, and now obviously me with my family, that we're secure as a family. And so that drives you quite a lot, I think, to build a business that is profitable and that's doing the right things in the world and that creates capital value. So I think that's one thing that, it's an innate, probably genetic or DNA based motivator for me, and also an environmental one, a conditional one. Yeah. So that's kind of one thing. So, but the more important things are this. At 16, I was very shy as a kid, very, very quiet. I don't
believe that, Mike.
Yeah, I know. So this is so I think this is part of the interest about my just kind of personal story as others perceive it. Right. Because it whatever people say, the great thing about telling your story on a podcast like this is it's a true story. No one can deny your personal story. It just is your story. As long as you're a truthful person, which I am, it's a true story.
Right.
And people relate to stories. That's what we've related to for thousands of years as human beings. So at 16, very shy, academically performed appallingly. Like I barely scraped through my O levels as they were then rather than GCSEs. I got, I think, a B and 4 Cs, I think, and left school at 16. Didn't want to do A levels, hated school, wanted to leave and just work. And at 16, I went for a load of jobs as an apprentice. So I went on interviews as an apprentice engineer. And I interviewed with, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 companies. And one company said to me, "You're not very bright, not very capable. We don't think you'll make much of yourself. So we haven't got a place for you." And I think as a young person at 16, a lot of people will be facing this. Huge numbers of people will have faced this. Right. And you kind of have a choice. You either accept it and then the world looks quite gloomy and dark, or you decide to do something about it. Yeah. Luckily, I decided to do something about it, but not because there were lots of mentors around me. We didn't have any mentors around me. My parents, my adoptive parents, were good, honest, hardworking people that worked in the administration functions in kind of companies. Our peer group, my parents' peer group, was just people from the local area in a very kind of lower working class, middle class area. I think we knew one entrepreneur who was Uncle George, and Uncle George had a scrap merchants and a petrol station, and he had all sorts of different things going on in his life. But we didn't really know doctors and lawyers, and I didn't know entrepreneurs existed back then. And so the reason, again, that's part of the story is because I didn't have people telling me all these different opportunities were available.
Okay, right.
But I got into a local engineering company, and I got into college. And it was because we had one person who was a teacher at the local college, and he wanted to help. So he talked to one of his engineering companies he knew, and he got me into an apprenticeship. And that was the kind of start of, I got into work and I had a job and I was doing something I loved, and it was amazing. And if you can kind of like play that story forward, I got to 21 and then realized that actually not having a degree in engineering was going to hold me back. So I then decided to go and do a degree, because back in the day, if you didn't have a degree as an engineer, you couldn't really go to the next stage. So I thought, okay, I'll go back to school, back to university, and I'll do my degree then. Right. And again, the lesson there is it's never too late. Everyone's got a different learning pathway in life. It's not about GCSEs, A-levels, university, master's degree. Right. In sequence, it's not about that, I don't believe. Mm-hmm. It's about different pathways for different people based upon where you are in your life. But never give up. Never assume that you won't be able to get further qualifications. You can. It's just about timing and attitude often. Yes, ability to an extent, but broadly attitude and timing, I think. So did my degree, back into engineering. And then at 30, I thought, I want to run a business. I'd always thought, what's this business thing? Right. How do people run businesses? What does it mean? What exactly is that? And I've been in engineering for a number of years, and I'd realized again, engineering was great. I enjoyed it. I wasn't a brilliant engineer, Kay. I was okay. I was all right. If you talk to my peer group, they'd all go, Mike was okay. He could design circuits. He was fine. But I wasn't a natural talent at engineering. I just happened to be okay at it. And I thought, but I really want to be in kind of management. I want to run things rather than design things. Right. And then I realized, well, I don't understand marketing. I don't understand finance. I don't understand HR. But I do understand operations and R&D. So what I did was I did an MBA. So I stopped, did an MBA at 30 at Cranfield, which was an amazing experience. And then went from there and thought, rather than go back into engineering, I'll go into a different sector. So I went from engineering project management into banking marketing. Made a complete switch.
Yeah.
And then did that for a while. And then someone said to me, you do realize, Mike, you won't get to the head of the bank ever because you've not come through the banking route. You've come in at in a marketing banking role, but you haven't come through the system. Again, things have changed now, but back then, there was a culture of you needed to have come through the system.
Right.
So I went, okay. So I thought I'll go and join a consulting business. So I joined KPMG as a management consultant and loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved the process, the analysis, the solving difficult challenges for clients, working on big brands with big teams. Really enjoyed it and ended up running big programs in their kind of strategy and transformation groups. So really enjoyed that. And then so you said at the beginning, how did you get into being an entrepreneur? It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It does not happen overnight. So that took me to the age of, what was I then? I don't know. Probably late 30s, early 40s, I guess, somewhere around there.
Wait, so you became an entrepreneur in your late 30s, early 40s?
Correct. It was 2000, so I'd have been 36. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there, that it's never too late.
Ever too late.
Right.
Ever.
So at that point, I guess you kind of felt like, okay, you got the experience, you got the know-how, you worked in these different companies, you got your degrees and your
Yeah.
masters and all of that. So then what happened next for you?
So I decided that I was going to go off and build a company. I thought,
Okay.
I know, I'll go and build a business. I've been in KPMG and I've been a consultant. I'll go and build a business. In this about 2000, I think it was. And I went off and I set up this kind of company on my own, which was me. And I knew a few big brands and I'd started speaking to some of those big brands. And one guy who was a senior mergers and acquisitions guy inside a big company, I won't name them. He was a really good guy. And he turned around to me one day and he said, Mike, it's a bit like buying from a smorgasbord, buying from you. I said, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, a smorgasbord, quite an old-fashioned term, was I think it's Danish, or Swedish. It's a big table full of all sorts of really lovely things to eat. But it's an entire variety. He said, the problem is, you say you can do all sorts, but I'm buying you. There isn't a company, Mike. It's you. And I need you for your expertise. So I'm very happy he said, to work with you and your expertise and pay you as a freelancer. But don't make a mistake. I'm not buying your business as a service provider. And I was like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so the big kind of like lesson here, I think, and this isn't a judgment statement at all.
Okay.
There's two routes at this point. You either become a freelancer or you kind of build a business. The two are very, very different. If you start with the end in mind, the good old Stephen Covey stuff,
right?
Start with the end in mind and work backwards. If you start thinking about building a business, then what you'll end up doing is, well, you probably won't earn much of a salary in the early few years,
right?
Because you need cash to build your business. And you'll start to think about client problems and how you solve them and what skills you need. And then you recruit people or get them as freelancers to do those things that are needed. And then you build a first team, and then you get a few more clients and you'll be out selling, and then you get some more clients and build a bigger team. So you keep doing that, and you keep building your cash reserves for the rainy day. It's raining today, as it happens, Kay, right. Heavily. And you're building a business. The other route is you freelance. You've got a skill, an expertise, a side gig, as many people call it now, a hustle, whatever you want to call it. And you work on that, and you might do it part-time originally because you might have a day job and then do this thing in the evenings or the weekends. And when that becomes big enough, you then leave your day job and do it full-time. And you're out freelancing as a expert designer or a writer or as a process consultant, whatever you might be. That's okay. It's fine. It's a great life. And I did it for about 5 years. I really enjoyed it. I earned good money, really enjoyed it. But it's not building a business. And I think people get hung up on this. I think people get worried about what people will think about this. Well, why aren't you building a business? Or, your business, why is your business still just you? It's like, well, it's just me because I like working on my own. I enjoy the lifestyle it brings. I enjoy the flexibility. I earn enough to have a nice life. And I don't want to manage people and all sorts of things. And that's okay. Okay,
what I'm hearing here is people are getting confused, freelance having a business.
Exactly.
Right? And most people, when they come out from working as an employee for somebody else, they tend to go straight into being a freelancer rather than building a business, because it does take money, time, knowledge, experience, all of that before you even get to that point.
Correct.
Right? And so having a business means making sure that you're doing what the business owner needs to do, going out, being in front of people, having a team of others behind you to do the things that you really shouldn't be doing. That is what a business is.
Because there's working on the business and in the business.
Right.
And as a freelancer, you are the business. You might have a limited company, which is a good thing to do. If you haven't, really think about it if you're working with bigger clients.
Right.
But you've got this limited company, but you're doing the work. They want you, for your knowledge, you're doing the work yourself. So you're working in the business. As an entrepreneur, business builder, you should be working more on the business.
Okay. And so how long did it take you from going into freelancing to then building your own business?
About 6 years. And I took a shortcut. So, which not everyone can do. It was something that was back in the late 2000s. Economy was going well. This is just before the crash. So this is before the 8-9 crash, 2008, 2009. An opportunity came up to buy a business. And I realized, actually, why don't I find a business that's going well and is successful that I understand, buy that, and then grow it. And that way I get a head start.
Right.
And everyone, all my friends, so this is the next lesson in life. All my friends, literally all of them said, you're raving mad. Why on earth would you risk all of your savings buying this business in the belief that you can grow it better than the people that already had it?
Wow.
And there's a bunch of particular reasons, a lot of which are kind of still confidential, about how I managed to buy it and why I bought it. But it was a brilliant business. The guys that started it were brilliant, very, very capable people. I managed to buy it and take it forward. And that was a really unique opportunity, very unusual, very unique. And at that time, the banks were lending money to entrepreneurs. So I managed to get bank debt to buy this business with an upfront and then some debt to fund the acquisition. And then I paid down the debt through operating cash flow. So, it was an unusual situation to be in.
Definitely.
But that's broadly how I managed to build this business with 20 million turnover, because I bought a business that was smaller than that and grew it.
Wow. So when you was in this position where you kind of had this kind of, business that you could buy, didn't you in your mind think, can I do this? Can't I do this? Should I be doing it?
Absolutely.
Were there any doubts?
Loads, stacks of doubts. And even on the day after it all completed and I took over, I remember standing in front of all the consultants. That was quite a terrifying time, because I had worked in that business before, and now I was all of a sudden the owner of that business.
Interesting.
And that was a really different situation to be in. And the lesson here again was that, all my friends saying you're mad, you shouldn't do this, they weren't bad people. They were very good people. They're still friends, but they didn't see it through my eyes. So I decided to take a calculated risk to buy this business.
See, I was going to say, what was your thought process where you was like, no, this is what I need to do?
Yeah, because I'd worked it through. I'd talked to my lawyer. Always have a good corporate lawyer if you're going to buy a business. Okay. I'd talked to my tax advisors. We'd worked it all through. And I, on a risk basis, having looked at all the risks, because there's reputational risk, there's operational risk, there's financial risk, there's all sorts of risks. I'd looked at it and gone, I think based on the plan that I've got and on my capabilities and the team that's around me, I think I can do this. Because what your friends will do is your friends will give you good advice about how they know you as a person. What they won't be able to do is give you advice about your ambition and whether it's achievable or not.
Right.
Only you can do that. So they'll try and protect you and help you, but they won't be able to give you particularly good advice that's objective about, is this achievable or not? Right.
Yes. I see what you're saying there. Your friends are always going to be protecting you and be like, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And it's really risky. That's what a lot of people say. This is risky, right? But as you know, as an entrepreneur, you got to take risks sometimes.
You have. And a lot of people, I think most people probably think that entrepreneurs are risk takers.
Yes.
My view would be, no, they're not risk takers. They're risk managers. No entrepreneur I know just randomly goes out taking a huge risk on something on the hope it will come off.
Right. It's like
that's crackers.
It's like you said earlier, it's calculated risks.
It is.
Right.
There are always risks. The skill is, first of all, understand the risks, then work out what the assumptions are behind the risks, and then work out whether the risks are manageable or not.
Right.
And one big thing, so one huge thing, about risk and managing risk when you're buying a business, growing a business, whatever you're doing. The decision that you make can't kill you. It's really, really, really important. So I put my savings at risk, on buying this business.
Yeah.
But if that had gone badly wrong, remember I'd just been a freelancer. Yeah. Yes, I'd have lost my savings, but I wouldn't be destitute. I had skills that I could sell in the marketplace as a freelancer.
Right.
I'd have just gone back to being a freelancer. Yeah. I'd have lost my savings. That would have been gutting. But it's not the end of the world.
Right.
I've not bet my flat because I didn't have a flat at that point. So it was a manageable risk. And it's all about that manageable risk. It didn't kill me. And any decisions you make in business, if the decision goes against you, you've got to be able to survive it going against you. In my view, taking a risk which would kill your business and take your house away as a family, that's not a risk worth taking.
Right. Okay.
Because if things go against you and it goes wrong, and you've got bank debt and you've got personal guarantees, it will go wrong. They will take the assets off you. Right.
Okay. All right. And so that's why the key word here that I'm getting from you is take risk, but calculated risk, right?
Correct.
No entrepreneur is going to make any silly move, right? They're going to make sure they get all the pieces of the puzzles together before they take that step forward, right?
I believe so. I mean, now some entrepreneurs will take huge risks and suffer the downside if it doesn't go their way.
Right.
And some of them, I'm sure, can become very successful. And a lot that you never hear about have failed. Remember, the ones that failed aren't in the news.
No.
The ones that it didn't work out for, they're not on the front page of the FT.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You just won't hear about them.
No, exactly. Exactly. And so I want to kind of switch lanes here slightly. You talk about you help companies with negotiations, right? With sales, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you've built that up from buying that business to kind of helping with negotiations. Where did that part of your business really start? How did that come about?
So I've always been fascinated in the topic of negotiations, right back to, when I was 30. And it's always been a fascinating topic about how do you negotiate a deal? Because you've got typically two parties negotiating something. And the interesting thing is, I don't know what's in your mind because I can't see into your mind.
Right.
So I've got to find out a way of working out what does Kay really need? What are her interests? What are her motivations? What the objectives are? How principled is she? How do you approach negotiations? Are our interests aligned? Are we going in the same direction? Are the timescales aligned? All of that, I think, it's fascinating because it's the overlap between psychology and business and kind of process. So here's the thing. So if you asked 100 people, could you be an outstanding negotiator, do you believe, as a person, compared to someone that they admire who's negotiated deals? They'd often go, 99% will say, no, I could never do that because I'm not like Kay. I haven't got her skills. I haven't got that front of stage charisma, and I'm not that quick on my feet. So no, I couldn't do that. It's impossible. It's a complete myth. It's a complete and utter myth. Anyone, any of your audience, anyone could 10x their negotiations, i.e. 10 times better their negotiations, just by doing 4 simple things consistently.
Okay, you got to tell us what those 4 things are.
I'm glad you've asked, Kay.
I'm excited. I'm like, just 4 things. It takes 4 things. Okay, got to hear this.
So this is for anything, yeah? So whether you're buying a car, or you're buying a personal purchase, or whether you're building a business, or whatever you're doing, yeah, you're negotiating deals. So I'll give you the 4 steps first, and then I'll go into each one in a little bit more detail.
Okay.
So step 1 is all about context, the critical context of the deal. What's the deal about?
Right.
Step 2, the process and timings of the negotiation. Step 3 is around the negotiation variables. What are the things you're going to negotiate around? It's not just price.
Okay.
And step 4, what are the issues? What are the things that are going to go wrong, or are going wrong, or that people are concerned about that you need to fix? So those are the 4 steps. If you prepare well and you write things down against these 4 steps before you go into negotiations, you will have a dramatically different negotiation.
That's amazing. Okay, now, before you go into more depth for each of those steps, we're going to do the Make Your Mark challenge.
Right.
Okay? We're going to go into this little quiz that I have every one of my guests doing just for a little bit of fun, right?
Okay.
And so what happens here, Mike, is I'm going to be giving you 30 seconds.
Yep.
And I have a feeling you're going to be really, really good at this.
That sounds dangerous.
30 seconds to name as many well-known companies, right? Brands that we have come to love, whether we use in our homes or in our businesses, right? Because that's what making your mark is all about. It's all those companies, those businesses that have made their mark in the world that we have come to love. 30 seconds to name as many as possible. And at the end of the season, the guest that has named the most in 30 seconds will win a prize. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So are you up for the challenge?
I think so.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm just going to get the timer on. And when I say go, start naming as many different businesses that we all come to know and love. But the only thing I do ask of you is no Googling.
Okay. No, my
Fantastic. Okay. Go.
Cadbury, Oatly, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Samsung, Denon, Riga, Mission, Shutco, Creative, Logitech. Who else have I got? Amazon.
Mm-hmm. It was getting a little bit tricky now.
Sheffield University, Cranfield University.
Stop. Okay. Do you know, it's so funny, right? Because we know so many businesses, right? We're around them all the time. But the minute you know you're getting timed, right, is that it just goes blank. So let's see how many you've got. 2, 6, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's not too bad. Not
too shabby. Exactly.
No, it's not. And so what I'm going to be doing is at the end of the season, I will send an email to all the guests to let them know what their scores are. And the number 1 winner will receive a prize from me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right. Perfect. Thank you for taking the challenge to do this and just, embracing it. But let's go back to the episode and talk about these 4 points of negotiations that you mentioned previously. So tell us a little bit about each one of those steps and what that really mean.
Okay. So step 1 was that critical context, the context of the deal, the background to it. Right. So the thing here is, so you need to get a bit of paper and just start to write things down.
Okay.
Over 80% of the value in a deal is in the preparation. It's been well proven, really well proven. Yeah.
Wait, when you say you need to prepare, what kind of things do we need to be looking at?
So your audience should get a piece of paper, write down the 4 steps. So critical context, process and timings, negotiation variables, issues and actions. Yeah. So imagine you've got a bit of paper and you've got those 4 headings written down.
Right.
So the first thing, so you do this every time.
Okay.
Even if it's only 5 minutes to prepare, ideally it should be an hour or 2. Oh. Just write down things in those 4 boxes. The first one, so critical context. What you're trying to do here is say, right, let's say I'm negotiating with the UK. Let's say you've got a car that you want to sell. Yeah. So the first thing is I go, well, what's my objective? I want to buy a car. Let's say it's a second-hand car. Okay. I want to buy a second-hand car. What you don't say is I want to buy Kay's second-hand car. I want to buy a second-hand car that's reliable, 4 years old, and is a part electric, part petrol vehicle. Okay. Then you do some research. Well, what are the cars out there, and how many are there? And I found 3 that I like. Great. So now you've got 3. So in the negotiation trade, that's what we call a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. I like Kay's car a lot, but actually Jane, her car's quite nice, and so's John's. So I'm going to try and see all of them on the same day around the same, kind of like area. So I've got 3 options. You've got options. Mm-hmm. Options give you power in any negotiation. So what's my objective? To buy a car of a certain type. What's Kay's objective for this car? Well, she wants to get the right price, sure, but she probably wants the cash quickly. Yeah, probably. And doesn't want to mess around. So I probably need to make a decision in the next 24 hours or whatever it might be.
Right.
And Kay might be concerned the car's had a couple of prangs. So it's kind of got a bit of risk in this car. So she doesn't want any comeback at all. So it's sold as seen, this car. Yeah.
Right.
So your objectives are to sell the car at the right price within 24 hours. It's got a bit of risk, but you want to be able to walk away and say, sold as seen.
Right.
So I might have got your objectives wrong, but I've written them down.
Okay.
So I've written your objectives down. I've written my objectives down. I've written down my alternatives. I've got 3 cards I could look at.
Yeah.
So now I've got the start of a negotiation. Then I'll go, just before we move on to step 2, what might go wrong? I might get there and Kay may have sold the car. Or I may get there and Kay's got someone right after me who wants to buy the car. Or just before me. Kay might play games. She might say she's got 2 other bidders.
Right.
So you think through what might happen.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay.
And then you write down, what will I say if any of those things happen? The reason you do this is we get very anxious when we're negotiating. Okay. You calm anxiety by being prepared.
Right. Yes.
Prepare
for the unknown.
Prepare for the unknown. So when you ask me the difficult question, I may have thought about it already. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's step 1. Step 2, process and timings. So how long is this going to take? Well, if it's buying a car and it's a second-hand car, then actually the process might be really quick. So it might be that you'll conclude the transaction within 24 hours. Yeah?
Yeah.
But the next thing you say is, well, what are the big milestones? Well, I need to see the logbook.
Yeah.
Do you actually own this car? Is it on HP? That's quite important. Mm-hmm. And other bits and pieces. So you go, well, there's 4 things that I need. So there's 4 steps, and it's going to take 24 hours. So within 24 hours, I need to have gone through those 4 steps, tick them off, and then conclude the negotiation.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. So now you've got process and timing sorted out. Mm-hmm. You probably only spent 5-10 minutes on this so far. Next thing, negotiation variables.
Yeah.
So buying a car, everyone says it's just price. Is it just price? Well, it's price and other things. So, for example, tyres. Has it got a full set of tyres that are brand new? Okay. It's got a full set of tyres. They're not brand new. So one of the variables could be, well, that tyre's got a puncture in it. So I'll only buy the car at a certain price if that slow puncture's been fixed. Yeah. And by the way, there's a tyre missing in the boot. So I'll only buy it if that tyre's in as well.
Right.
So one variable might be condition. Yeah. Now, condition has an impact on price, obviously. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What other variables might you have? Well, when you're buying a car, other variables could be, well, what kind of payment term do you want? It's like, well, I want all the money, the cash. It's like, well, I'm not going to hand the cash over. So maybe it's a banker's draft.
Right.
But if you do a banker's draft, maybe you'll say, well, the price has to change. Yeah, because the type of payment affects the price of the vehicle.
Right.
So price is affected by condition, and it's affected by the type of way we're going to pay for the vehicle, potentially.
Okay. Yeah.
Other variables might be. So you might go, could you give me a guarantee? And you're like, must be joking. It's like, well, how about a guarantee of if the car breaks down within a day, I want my money back. Because you might have sold me a complete pup.
Right.
Now you might go, no, absolutely not. Car's the car. Not doing that. You buy it, you don't buy it. It's like, okay. So there's no guarantee. There's no service record, Kay, is there either? Yeah, I had it serviced by a friend. Yeah, I know. There's no service record. No. Okay. Well, that's going to affect the price. So you write down your variables for the deal. If you're in business and you're buying a business, or rather, if you're in business and you're a salesperson, for example, and you're negotiating with a client, really easy. There are about 5 or 6 variables that spring to mind. There's the price of the deal, the scope of the deal, the length of the contract, the termination rights the client's got, the IP, who owns the IP. Yeah, well, there's 5 to start with. Yeah. So when you're negotiating anything, there are variables, and the variables are interlinked. So, for example, if you're selling and you're selling to a client, then normally the price is affected by the length of contract. So you'll probably take a better price for a 3-year contract with no termination rights than you would for a 6-month contract.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you just look at your variables. So the next thing you're into now, step 3, is write down your variables. And this is really simple. So step 3, you write down your variables in the negotiation. Let's carry on.
Just to kind of point out here, you say variables. Is that the same as objections?
No, completely different.
Okay.
Come to objections in a second. That's step 4.
Oh, okay. I'm jumping ahead. All right. Never mind.
So step 3 is writing down your variables. Yeah. So let's take the salesperson selling into a company example, because it's easier to explain. Your variables are price, contract length, termination rights, and scope. Yeah. So those are your 4 variables, say. So in your step 3 on your bit of paper that people have got in front of them, you write down those 4 things.
Okay.
You then draw 2 columns. 2 columns. You've got 4 variables: price, contract term, IP, and scope. Write those down. You draw 2 columns, and in one column you say, what's my ideal outcome? On the right-hand side.
Okay.
On the left-hand side, you say, what's the least acceptable outcome? Yeah?
Okay.
And then you write down in each box what your ideal is and what you'll accept. So now what you've got is price, contract term, IP, and scope. Yeah?
Okay.
And you've got the ideal for price and the least you'll accept for price. You've got the ideal for IP, the least you accept for IP. You've got the ideal scope, the least accept your scope.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So now you've got ranges. So as you change on price, you change on scope. And you move them around. But what you don't do is you never breach your lower limit.
Yes. Okay. I can see where you're going with this. I can see where you're going now. Right? Yeah. It's making sure you prepare in your own mind when you're having that conversation, right? What your limits are.
Correct. Really simple.
Yes. Rather than just kind of having a conversation and ask a question, you're like, oh, stumped. What do I say? I don't know.
Yeah. Or you make it up on the fly. Even worse.
Yeah. And then you realize later on, oh, damn, I'm not making any money right now.
Because what I'll do, Kay, is if you're not prepared, and I am, I'll do what they often call serial negotiations rather than parallel negotiations. So we're on step 3, these variables, yeah?
Yes.
You've not prepared, I have. Imagine we go into the room and I start saying, look, there are 4 things that are we want to discuss here. There's price, there's IP, there's contract term, and there's there's I forgot the other one was now, scope. And you're like, yeah, fine. And I say, so just be just interested to hear your thoughts, Kay. You're like, right, okay, so the price is $10,000 a month for an agreed scope that we've talked about before. I'm like, okay, fine. And I start to say, right, let me just stop you there for a second. Would you accept, Kay? So I think what we need to do is I'm going to reduce the scope down a little bit, and it's going to be £5,000, not £10,000 per month, because I know in the marketplace that your services are only worth 5, not 10. So I'm going to refute your 10 altogether. I'm going to change the scope a little bit, and we're going to lock in at 5. Are we okay, Kay? Am I done at 5? Will you agree to 5? And you go, not sure about that. I'm like, well, okay. So I'll say, well, let's assume you have. I'll assume that that's done at 5.
Right.
Okay. And then you're like, right, okay, where are we going next? I'm like, right, okay, so termination rights. By the way, I can terminate the contract at will. Agreed?
Right. Okay.
Right.
So
that's the next thing. But you might say, but I can't terminate at will. I need a bit of notice period. I'm like, no. Right. Termination at will. You're like, but what about a notice period of a month? And I'd go, maybe a month. Okay, so we could do a month. But by the way, your price is now 4,000.
Huh. Right.
Because you want more guarantees. So I want the lower price.
Yes.
And you're like, okay. So what's happening is I'm taking advantage of the position in a sequence because I've locked you in at 5. You've now wanted a month. So I've knocked you down again from 5 to 4.
Yeah.
The smart thing to do, by the way, slightly more complicated, is you put all 4 on the table at once and you start to move them around. So you don't agree to 5K. You say, well, let's park the 5K for a second because that's linked to scope and the length of contract and the IP rights. Yeah. Let's talk about those and how they all interplay before we finalize on where the price might get to.
Okay. And also what I've noticed here is if you don't come prepared, you're giving the power to the other person.
Correct. And I will, by the way, I will start by what we call anchoring. I will start the negotiation as the buyer by saying, right, Kay, there are 4 things we need to discuss as agreed, price, scope, IP, and contract term. These are the terms. It's a 6-month contract. The price is going to be £5,000. The scope is going to be X. I own all the IP.
Right. Okay. So you just lay it out in front of them straight up.
So it's called anchoring. In negotiation terms, you're anchoring the deal.
Okay.
What happens is I go on the front foot because I'm prepared. Mm-hmm. I anchor the deal around all the things that I want.
Yes.
At the bottom end of what's just about acceptable. Mm-hmm. In fact, just below is where I've gone, probably just outside the zone of agreement. And now you've got to fight your way back from there.
Right.
Because I've taken control of the meeting.
Yes.
And the agenda.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That was powerful stuff. Wow. Okay.
And then the last step is objections and issues.
Right.
As you go through a deal, people are going to make objections. They're going to talk about issues, reasons they can't do something. So write them down. Don't solve them in the meeting. You write them down and in advance, because we're in the prep stage, remember, we're preparing. On that last box, issues and challenges, write down what you think they might object to and have an answer for them before you even get to the meeting.
Okay, so that makes complete sense. What about if they say, oh, I can't make a decision right now to go and speak to my business partner?
Oh, yeah, my business partner. Yeah, it's really important. Mm-hmm. It's like, so there's a few things you can try. So the first thing is you'd say, understand, okay, that you don't want to make a decision now. First thing is, do you have the authority to decide?
Ah, okay. If they say no.
Then I'll say, in that case, Kay, unfortunately, everything we've talked about is off the table.
Oh, really? You would just take it off the table?
I would. Because I'm like, I thought I was negotiating with someone who's a decision maker. Clearly, I'm not. I've made a mistake.
Ah, okay. All right, I see.
So actually, when you go and see your boss,
yes,
there is no offer. It's a shame we've wasted half an hour of our time, but I'm going to leave now. Now, that's a fairly aggressive tactic, As a
Yeah.
salesperson, you'd need to be pretty confident of your ground.
Mm.
If you're a salesperson, by the way, and I'm the buyer,
Yeah.
one of the early things I'll do in a bigger deal is say, do you have the power to negotiate? Now, it's a bit of a
Right.
trap because you might say, well, I'm not a director, I can't sign the contract. That's the wrong
Right.
answer. What you can say is, yeah, I've been empowered by my organization to negotiate a deal with you. Final ratification has to go through a board because we've got governance.
Right.
You know, you'd be saying you'd expect Micahs to have good corporate governance, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because we're a good supplier. And I'd go, yeah, okay, fine. All right.
Ah.
So just be aware of the authority trap.
Okay. Okay. And so whenever you kind of go into a business negotiation, right, do you actually say in the beginning that you need to be speaking with a person that needs to be able to make the decision before you go ahead with this meeting?
So the theory would say, yes, you should, qualify that first.
Yeah.
It's rare, practically, it happens
Oh.
because there's another bit at play as well, which is there's a relationship piece. So when you're negotiating with someone, there's two big dimensions. There's the relationship and there's the context, the thing you're negotiating around.
Right.
So if you only focus on the context, the thing you're negotiating around,
right,
at the expense of the relationship, on big deals that are more complex, what happens is it can really irritate the counterparty if you completely ignore all relationship aspects of you as a counterparty, but also the other stakeholders in the longer term relationship. So it can have quite bad effects. So what I'd recommend is, and which is why you don't ask at the beginning, are you authorized to negotiate? Because it's very confrontational.
Okay.
I'd recommend for complex negotiations that have got lots at stake, take a bit of time getting to know your counterparty. And in that getting to know you, start to talk about, look, obviously, I'm not going to ask you outright, are you authorized to negotiate? I'm assuming that you are. Who else would have to get involved in this to ratify it? What you've done is you've gently reminded them they need to be authorized to negotiate with you.
Right. Okay.
And you've also asked them who else needs to be involved to ratify this deal.
Yes. Okay. So again, it's to do with languaging, right?
Correct.
How you kind of put it forward. So that's really interesting.
And confidence. A big part of negotiation in the meetings, in the sessions, be they virtual or in person or via email, is confidence. If you lack confidence as a negotiator, I'll spot it.
Okay. And so that's where the preparation comes from.
Correct.
The more confident you're going to be in having this conversation.
Correct.
So you mentioned something else, right? When you do negotiations or you're speaking to someone, not just face to face or on telephone, but email.
Yeah.
How do you let that come across in an email?
Be very careful with the way you phrase things.
Okay.
Be very careful about the sequencing of how you say things. Make it logical, make it short, make it clear. As William Ury says, he wrote a brilliant book called Getting to Yes with a guy called Roger Fisher. It's a great book on negotiation, takes about 2 or 3 hours to read. So it's called Getting to Yes. It's a brilliant book.
Okay.
And I think in there he says, never threaten, but educate. So in an email, what you might, if someone's playing really hardball and they appear to be trying to take more power in the negotiation, a good thing to do is to educate them about what we'll both miss out on if we don't do this deal. So what's the lost opportunity of not doing this deal?
Right.
Not threatening anyone. I'm just saying there are benefits to both of us finalizing this deal. And these benefits are X, Y, and Z. If we fail to negotiate a deal together, there are consequences for us as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
What you don't do is you don't get angry in the email. You don't take it personally at all. So I always say, you need to be. So a very good friend of mine years ago, a guy called Matthew, said to me, the moment you're emotionally wedded to the outcome of a negotiation is the moment you've lost the deal. And he was right 30 years ago. He's still right today.
Yeah.
So I'm just like kind of replay that. The moment you're emotionally wedded to the outcome, what does that mean? What that means is if in your head you've signed the deal you've banked the money, and you're working with this client, a trained negotiator will spot that and they'll use it as leverage.
Right.
That's why you have to have options. So you take the emotion out of it.
Right.
And as a seller, so sellers are out there going, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What do you mean options? As a seller, I'm selling. It's a deal. I either win the deal or don't win the deal. Right. Yeah, the options are your pipeline. The best option a salesperson's got is the strength of their pipeline. If you're selling to me and you have a very weak pipeline and you're short on your quarter or year target, and I'm the only game in town to hit your target, I will absolutely find out.
Whoa, okay.
I'll know from your language, from the way you react, the cadence of your communication, how quickly you want to get the deal done. I'll spot all the signs. It's really obvious.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so what are the signs that you're looking for now in someone?
So some of the things are, for example, from a seller, if you're too keen to get the deal done quickly, that's a problem. If you're trying to rush me through a sequence of negotiations that should take 2 months, but you want to get done in 2 weeks, I'll know. And I might say to you, Kay, why? Normally I do a lot of these deals. They take about 8 weeks before we get to sign contracts.
Yeah.
You want to do it in 2 weeks. A, it's not achievable. Why? Why do you need it done in 2 weeks? And you're like, oh, well, we're just we're really busy and yeah, things are going on and it should be an easy deal to do. And I'll be like, none of that makes any sense, Kay.
Right.
Just explain it again to me. Just talk me through in detail.
Okay.
And I'll spot the way that you respond. I'll know from your body language.
Wow. Okay.
I'll know from, you'll come back to me tomorrow morning with a whole load of documents and you'll say to me, I thought I'd speed up the process. Recognize that 8 weeks is what you think. I want 2 weeks. But what I've done, I've prepared all this stuff for you to make it easier for you. So hopefully maybe we could do it in 4 weeks, maybe. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. Yeah. So now I know you've got a ticking clock and I haven't. So we get towards 4 weeks and I'm like, there's quite a few things here that we haven't agreed yet. And you're like, no, I need to get the deal done. I need to get the deal signed. I'm like, okay, yeah. What about if we change the commercial structure by doing this, this, and this? Now, if you're emotionally wedded to the outcome and you're 4 weeks in and you promise something to someone and you want to get the deal done, you may well yield. And what's happening here is I'm not trying to take advantage of you.
Right.
What's happening is your company is being disadvantaged by your personal agenda to get this over the line.
Right.
So you've got a personal agenda going on and a company agenda going on your side.
What's interesting is, to me, everything you've just mentioned here has to do with really listening, right? Yep. Not just to the words that you hear, but to their body language, their tone, right? The kind of actions they're doing. Everything is comprised to kind of learn more about this person and what's actually going on. Yeah. And you might even turn around, Mike, and this has probably happened to you. You probably turn around and say, okay, maybe I don't want to do business with this person.
Correct.
Right? Because you've seen in the weeks how they are reacting.
Exactly. And I'm not a massive fan of the whole, the body language is all critical and you should watch for the eye movement and where the hand. Right. It's just another sign. You need to be present and aware.
Yes. Yes.
If you're a salesperson and I'm negotiating with you and you're doing your email at the same time as talking to me.
Yeah.
Because we're in a negotiation whereby it's me and a colleague and you and a colleague and you're doing your emails. I might say to you, Kay, you're making notes. And you'll be like, no, I'm just answering an email. I'm like, stop answering your emails. Put your phone down.
Right.
So again, I am trying to control the agenda. I want your attention. It's an important deal. If you're distracted, I may choose to let you carry on. because now I'm going to negotiate with your colleague. I'm going to ignore you altogether.
Yeah.
You're behind the curve now. You might say, oh, Mike, I missed that bit. What was that? I'm like, well, you should have been listening.
Exactly. Exactly.
Too late now.
Right. Oh my God. Mike, this has been awesome. I feel like I could speak to you forever, right, on this. This is great
Thank you, Kate.
stuff. This is great stuff. But I know, Mike, at this point, people are listening. They're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I need to speak with Mike. I need to get connected with him. How can they get connected with you and reach out to you? So
simple things. So LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You find me Mike Lander on LinkedIn. And also our website, Piscari. So piscari.com. And there's lots of resources on there and case studies and blogs. I also do a podcast for something called The Drum. So I host a podcast for The Drum.
Fantastic. Awesome. Guys, if you haven't already connected with Mike, if you don't know Mike, if you feel like you know that he can help you in business and negotiations and really turn up that revenue of yours in the business, then go and connect with him. Go to LinkedIn, find Mike Lander and make sure you reach out, because I, with no doubt, can tell you that he can help you with your business. Thank you so much, Mike. This was a pleasure. So many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Kate. Really enjoyed being with you, and thanks for inviting me.
Definitely. Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much. And I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.